Hey, Paul, we've heard a ton about Adam Lowry's defense. We're starting to see some of that offensive side of his game flourish, but I'm looking more at the leadership side to Adam Lowry in the sense that, he seems to be universally respected by his teammates, coaching staff. He's got that toughness. He brings on the defensive assignments, and he also seems like the guy who doesn't need a letter on his chest. Right. I'm just wondering from you where you see Adam's leadership on this team, and could you see him as a leader, with a letter on his chest in the future?
So for sure. As an overt sign of leadership, the letter on the sweater for sure. What he is he's unique in the room, right? He's a big, powerful man. Our team hasn't been built on defense first players, so he's clearly takes that assignment and takes it seriously on the penalty kill. There's also the physical element, when you have something happen like it did in Vegas last year and he ends up fighting a real tough player in Ryan Reeves. You have a unique spot in the room then. What's makes him, a strong leader, is a very intelligent man. And he's also the player rep, so that there's a respect for the fact that he has their best interests in heart on and off the ice. I think he's universally respected for that. Coaching staff as well. Guy wants to learn and wants to talk about hockey. Adam is a really focused individual, right? We're fortunate we got a bunch of those guys, but he wants to get better. Wants to improve his game, but he's never once knocked on the door and said, "Hey, I want to play more minutes. I don't like the role I've got. I want to play with more offensive guys." This is a guy who scored 15 goals for us a few years ago and has never once complained that I've put him in a role that at times is going to limit his offense. So team first mindset always makes those guys leaders.
We'll go next to Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Sean.
Hi, Paul. How are you today?
Good, thank you.
Paul, looks like you switched up your top two lines there. I'm interested in how you balance the risk between getting one line going by sacrificing or potentially sacrificing the momentum of another line that is already going.
Yeah, there's a lot more pieces always that go into this decision, and the other factors that are considered are, you're going into a 4-game series with one team. So this gets to be a bit more unique to this year in that matchup's going to matter and how the lines match up and style of play, I think, comes into that. The chemistry of a line, you're right. You certainly want to acknowledge it, and I don't think that the Stastny line's been lucky. I think they've been good. It's also a place I know I can go back to if I need to. And I don't think it will take very long to kind of rekindle that. But we're always looking for more. And at the end of it, you have to have a balance on your 4 lines, but clearly the top 3. And when we talk about Adam Lowry's role inside of that defensive, then you're talking about the top 2. There's 6 guys there that right now we're looking to generate a certain amount of offense and always, and at the same time, give up less. So, we were, I think, 4-1 coming into the last night's game. I've liked it. I liked the first period last game. Didn't like our second, but there wasn't enough there. I mean, we've had that in the past. All teams have, and we've been such a strong third period team that I wanted to give that a chance. The players had earned the right to make that happen. So, but I've been playing with these ideas. You do it all the time. You're always looking at what's your next combination. What's, how do you get a guy going? So we just came to this.
We'll go next to Ken Weave from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Weaver.
Paul, what do you like specifically about the potential for the Stastny-Wheeler portion of that combo? I know they played together a little bit in Germany and obviously have a lot of familiarity with one another as 2 veteran players.
I like it's a balance on that. It's as much as I would say we could focus on that. I also like Kopp and Scheifele together. And Nicky's game is different than it's ever been here. So there's a bit of a discovery that's going on because it's not the same guys every year, right? And what I mean, that players come back differently. right? They mature, they add things to their game. What I'd like to have always kind of wanted to be able to do is move Mark Scheifele around a little bit more in terms of the matchup. So when you look at the generation over the last 4 years, the Lowry line had allowed me to kind of hide young players on the third line, young offensive players on the third line. But in order to do that, especially on the road, you were constantly running Mark against the other team's most offensive line. And there are times that it's really good for you, right? Just think of the 7-game Nashville series against Johansson's line. And they're the difference in doing that. But there are also times where you don't want that. It's not working for you. And it's also a real heavy burden to bear. This may be a terrible analogy, but it might make some sense to you. It's sometimes it's like all 4 lines, if you use a golf analogy, all 4 lines are going to play a different course. And you try to fit their skill set to that golf course. So some guys are going to play Augusta National, some guys are going to play Pinehurst number 2, and you try to fit that skill set. At the same time, some guys will play a real long course and some guys play the short course. And it's good to be able to, there's a burden that comes with playing against the other team's best every night. And sometimes you like to be able to relieve that burden and move some people around. So your original question is what I like about them. The 2 veteran guys that have had the game established in Wheeler and Stastny. They don't come to the rink wondering how they're going to play that night or how hard or what style of game they're coming together. So they know that. Kyle, I think, is an unusual addition to any line because that kind of speed just changes the way the other group looks at them. And then I think that with Andrew Kopp's strength, and while we're seeing some really good offense from him, Andrew Kopp's strength still is on the defensive side of the puck. And I think that can help Mark an awful lot in how he plays.
We'll go next to Sarah Orlesky from TSN. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thanks, Paul. Are you considering making any adjustments to your defensive pairings going into tomorrow night?
Yeah, that'll be a process that takes more than a day to talk about. Again, we'll look at matchup first. We'll look at play and health and all those kind of things, but we'll look at that, yeah.
Go next to Kelly Moore from CJOB. Go ahead, Kelly.
Hey, Paul, I don't want, or I'm not asking you to comment directly on reportedly Calgary having a players-only meeting before last night's 2-0 win over Montreal. But in light of how this season is structured, is there any way you can get through this schedule without having 1 or 2 of those? And what's your philosophy on that? Is that something that's talked about between the leaders and the coach before it happens? Or in your case, is it just something that happens organically?
Those are... I think you get a really wide variety of effectiveness from that idea, right? First of all, they always come at a bad time, right? They come when the emotions are there. The far better, for me, team meetings, players only meetings, you never know about. So they probably happen way more than you think. I would almost be assured that the ones that you know about are when you can't get in the room because the players are having a players only meeting right after the game. And that's usually just everybody's just incensed and they yell at each other and hold each other accountable and show each other how much they care. And there's a value to them for sure, but those things happen far more often. A lot of the times it's about sticking together and getting better. I don't know that I've ever gone to a captain and said, you need to have a players only meeting. Because if I think they should have a meeting, I'm going to walk in the room and have it, and then they can talk about what I've said or after, right? Believe me, players have lots of meetings without coaches involved. So it's not as big a deal, I think, as sometimes it gets made out to be, because it happens way more often than you know, if that makes sense.
Next to Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Sean.
Hey, Paul. I know that you touched on Tucker Poolman and that he's got to get his win back up. I'm just wondering where he is. I would have expected to see him out working with the taxi squad here.
Oh, so we have a schedule of pushing on and off days, kind of amping up his work. And right now, so we've actually got 3 groups we've got a group that's called the IR skate. Anybody that has an injury or is dealing with something doesn't skate with the taxi group. It's almost like the guy that wears the gold sweater, the non-contact. So we have a skate that happens with players before you guys get to the rink, and that's either with one of our athletic therapists, either our strength coach or one of our coaches will do that if we want something specific. And then they move into that taxi squad before they get to the main group.
I'll go back to Ken Weave from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Weaver.
Paul, just when it comes to the fourth line composition, looked like Christian Vesalainen got a couple of rotations. What's going to take for him to get another game look? And is that something that could be on the horizon here?
I've liked his camp. I've really liked the progress and his maturity and his work ethic. So he's certainly on the radar to get back in the lineup.
Just a couple more. We'll go next to Jeff Hamilton from the Free Press.
Hey, Paul, the duo of Mark Scheifele and Andrew Kopp is intriguing, if only for their relationship off the ice and how close they are. I'm curious, how long have you thought about that, putting that duo together? And is it safe to suggest, without being, not trying to be a jerk about it, but has Andrew Kopp kind of earned that point right now? Like, did he have to get to a point where he could play with Mark Scheifele?
So I don't think you're being a jerk about it. I think that's a really intelligent way of viewing it. How two guys feel about each other, you would never make a lineup decision based on that, but it certainly would never hurt it, right? Two guys are good friends. They talk hockey a lot. These two guys talk hockey all the time. I've just really, really liked the Kopp and Lowry situation with us in the years past. It was a really, really important connection. Those two guys played a huge role. I think a couple of years ago, we had gone like 2 seasons with the second most home wins in the NHL, and they were a huge part of that. It allowed me to move, again, those young players around and not have them play against the other team's best. So he certainly earned it. And it's not a payoff. It's not like, hey, kid, you worked real hard and you're putting some points up, so I'm going to, throw you a bone. It's your game says, now it can be really good with Mark. You can add something, right? Mark's not carrying you. What you do, what Andrew Kopp does is going to make, we're really hopeful it'll make Mark Scheifele's game better. And that's kind of what we're looking for in all these adjustments is to make the players around you better. So he's most definitely played well enough, absolutely, to play there.
And final question to Sarah Orleski from TSN. Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, when you have a line that's going as well as the Stastny line was in generating stuff, is it a fine line when breaking it up, or is it easier in the sense that you kept the wingers together and just switched out the center?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm not particularly worried about, I don't think there's going to be a chemistry issue. Right. I think what you're going to do is they're going to look different, but I know what the Stastny line looked like. We've had pretty good, and haven't been overly excited about the results of Kyle, Mark, and Blake, except we know that that's been really, really good at times too. So it's just I want to see a little different look. We're going to have at some point a new player come in here. We'll have to go through this again. So. It's a look. Not only we haven't had a chance to look at it, these players have never been the same. Like Andrew Kopp's never been this player before, right? That's what development is, and that's true of Nikolai Ehlers and Stas and Wheels. We kind of always thought would be a good pair, and then we're going to get a real good look at it. So we're going to put good NHL players on the ice, whether it takes off right away or doesn't. It won't hold us back. We should be a good team tomorrow.